minutes, though, we are discussing today's top stories. We've got Nick Ferrari and Georgia Toffolo.
Good morning.
Morning, both of you.
Morning.
So, obviously, this street brawl continues, allegations of sleaze. Well, let's start this with the fact that the Prime Minister was on News at 10 last night denying various allegations. Let's have a look at that.
No, but again, I think the important thing I think people want us to get on and do as a government is to make sure that the lockdowns work.
Although Robert Peston, the political editor of ITV News, has claimed that he has at least two sources who support the claims. So let's have a look at that.
I have two people who both say they witnessed the Prime Minister making this extraordinary comment in a fit of rage. Now, Prime Minister saying it didn't happen. My understanding is that two of the witnesses, two I've spoken to, are prepared at some point to go on the record, in fact, swear on oath that this happened.
Contentious quote that Robert was talking about there was the fact that Boris Johnson said he would rather bodies pile high in their thousands than order a third lockdown. Nick?
I think until we came to that, and let's describe it as unfortunate choice of words, which the Prime Minister denies using, I don't think this story was really sticking. And what you heard the Prime Minister say right at the top is it was about right. People are feeling good about themselves. The vaccines are rolling out. Even the sun's come out and we're able to socialise in a sense now by going to pub gardens or restaurants that are outside. So I think he was right. But, and the key is what Robert Peston just said, I understand there are now a total of 3 people who say that they heard this remark. 2 of them are prepared to go on oath. I remind you, and I'm not saying that Mr. Cummings, Dominic Cummings, his former chief, knows that he is the source, but he is due to give evidence to a parliamentary committee around this time next month, in about a month's time. If it is proven now that Boris Johnson did say that, and he is then seen to be a liar over that, then I think this starts to gain traction. And his popularity, quite honestly, Phillip, which hasn't been dented until now, he's still running roughly, he's down a couple of points. I think then he could be in trouble. So it all hinges on someone effectively putting their name to it.
Georgia, is the problem here that really he shouldn't have denied or confirmed it and just sort of said, you know, this conversations happen in private all the time. You've got to be able to speak freely amongst your own people. Yes, if he did say it, it's a horrible choice of words. Absolutely, we can all agree with it. But it's not like he said it out publicly in front of a lot of people. I don't know, Georgia, what do you think? Has he sort of backed himself into a corner here?
Yeah, I think we have seen this government in particular ride out so many media storms by not giving oxygen to stories. Now, this is just so horrific. And I think the timing of it, alongside obviously these allegations about the revamp of number 11, is not great. And I think Boris must have thought, I've got to say something, because I think as a country as a whole, we're all looking at this and we're thinking, oh, we've been through the most horrific year. Maybe it was time for him to stand up and say something. Now, I get those words are really horrendous, but the other thing that I find deeply worrying is this insinuation that some shady trust has been set up to revamp their living accommodation. And I think, you know, we have such great trust in the legal parameters to do with funding of political parties and in particular people in power. And I think you only have to look back at the MP's expenses scandal to know how damaging that was to the public faith in the people that are really governing our country. So I think it is the accumulation of both of those. He had to say something.
We're fairly light on facts on this, Nick, and obviously there are various inquiries, parliamentary inquiries, all sort of ongoing. So I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it and find out who it is that's actually telling the truth here. However, what it does do is it overshadows the fact that that he also said, and bearing in mind, you know, we do like to latch onto any good news we can have other than this street brawl. There is a very good chance of ending coronavirus restrictions completely on June the 21st. This is his most optimistic assessment yet. He still expects a third wave of the virus, but vaccination had built some pretty robust fortifications against it, Nick.
Well, that's the reality, isn't it? And indeed, we're almost coming in a full circle because that's what the Prime Minister is desperate that we focus on. And let's put some numbers to it. You're absolutely right. I think it's 30+ million now have had their first dose. Nearly 13 million have had their both vaccinations, or the first and the booster. And this speaks exactly now. It would be a fantastic moment for the Prime Minister if, come June, all restrictions can be lifted. I don't think it can come too soon because, and this is something that we've focused on and I'm sure you've discussed as well, which my listeners find truly extraordinary, and my heart goes out to any of your viewers who are attending a funeral later, but you can put 8,000 people in Wembley Stadium who don't know each other and they hug and kiss when their team wins the cup or whatever. You still restrict 30 people going to a funeral. And that is in place currently, probably until next month, if not June. And I do think that is something, while it's very, very sad, but given the high number of deaths, I think that's something that needs urgent review.
Let's move on to a different talking point now. All 85,000 plus COVID fines issued in England during the pandemic should be reviewed, MPs and peers have said. This comes after more than a quarter of prosecutions in the first 2 months of the year for breaching the regulations was shown to have been wrongly brought. So, Georgia, what do you think? Should these be reviewed at least?
Yeah, I think they should. I think it is quite subjective because, as you mentioned, we saw, loads and loads of fines. In my opinion, lots of them are really farcical. I remember a story of, 2 vaccinated grandmothers going for a walk, sitting down on a bench, getting a fine. Of course, that is just so wrong and definitely falls into the bracket that you mentioned, Holly, about a quarter of the fines, being issued wrongly. And I think also it'd be wrong of us not to touch upon, these coronavirus laws, God knows what they are. They've changed so many times. And Yes, I think there should be a review, but I think it must also be said there is a distinct difference between, 2 ladies going for a wander, sitting down on a bench, and an illegal large rave. And that would be quite hard for the government to decipher which is which,
Well, Nick, as George has just pointed out there, the change in regulations and rules, the Joint Committee on Human Rights said coronavirus regulations have been changed at least 65 times since March last year, were muddled, discriminatory and unfair.
Should we press pause for a moment? So we have a number of MPs sitting on the committee you've just referenced, a number of MPs saying that this was wrong. Can I just take you back 12, 13 months plus? What was the body that brought in the changes of the law? It wasn't the police, so don't let the police force take a kicking over this. It was the same Parliament that are now peopling this committee saying that it was wrong. So you talk about mixed messages or the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. These laws were brought in by MPs and now they're saying, no, they're not right. Well, maybe they should have considered them in the first place instead of potentially thousands of people being unfairly fined and possibly, not in all instances, but if it had progressed, possibly even be looking at having a criminal record. They should have had much more caution at the time.
Nick, I wanted to come back to you actually for this next story because I know this is one you've been talking about on your radio show this morning. You feel very passionate about. Hundreds of crimes, including robberies and assaults, are being committed by people on electric scooters, an investigation reveals. What sort of thing were you talking about this morning?
Well, how widespread it is across the whole of the country. Norfolk, Derbyshire, Greater Manchester, London. Typically, it's young people. In one instance, now get this, there was even, well, what do you call it? It's not a drive-by shooting. Is it a scooter-by shooting? I don't even know what you would call it. I mean, again, people commit crimes on mopeds, on bicycles, on cars. This is just another form of transport. But where the danger is with this is these are so much more accessible. So you can rob children in a park. You can walk into a park with one of these scooters that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do on another form of vehicle. And the ease with which these people can get away. And also, and again, I'm sure this affects your viewers, some people, particularly blind or disabled people, a lot of these folk, they're totally unlicensed, these scooters. They're riding them on pavements, which is illegal, and they're going into people and causing serious injury. So they're here to stay. Let's kid ourselves. They are green. I understand it, but they must be regulated. That's what my listeners were saying, Holly.
Yeah.
Georgia?
Yeah, in addition to what Nick's saying, I live in central London and every single day, from a safety aspect, I see people weaving in and out of traffic, not wearing helmets. So it's not just, the terrible things that happen crime-wise. It's the lack of safety. And actually, you don't legally have to wear a helmet, which I find bizarre and so worrying.
I think that it's for the manufacturers, people who use them, and we were sent one, and I looked online. There's nowhere I'm actually allowed to ride the things. It's just sitting there. But to blame them for crime, as you say, Nick, you can blame a bike or a car or a skateboard or running past and stealing someone's phone. So that I think the issue here has to be regulation and safety. Let's go to this. I've got a trailer here for you. The country is gripped by line of duty. We have, and all I'm allowed to say is on Monday's show, a very exciting guest. pertaining to that show.
I'm glad you're saying this,
on
not
Monday.
me, because I definitely would
I'm
mess it
treading
up.
the line of what we were told we were allowed to say this morning, and I think I've gone right down the middle
Treading
of
the
it.
line of duty will be the new
That's exactly what it is. So we do have an exciting guest on Monday. What we've got to hope is that there is a resolution that we
closure.
find.
Something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, Nick?
I have been gripped by this since it began. I have to say, I think this series has been a bit of a roller coaster. I think we've had some of the most suspenseful moments of all. I think sometimes it's got a little bit bogged down, but yeah, I mean, not only, of course, am I going to tune in, I'll have to be sure to watch on Monday as well to see what's happening. The other parliamentary inquiries, they can all... I don't care now about the flat. I don't give a damn about it. I just want to know
another serious issue finally to be discussed here. Sainsbury's has been forced to apologise after customers in Cornwall complained it had used a photo of a scone or scone laden with cream with the jam on top. That is not the Cornish way.
No, it is not.
It was in Truro. It's said obviously the Devonshire way is to put.
Is that way?
Yeah, that's the way.
I think I'd go
I'm
Cornish.
a Devonshire girl through and through.
Well, what am I then? I don't like cream.
Well, you're just sick.
What?
So I'm just...
You're a
I'm just
nomad.
jam on toast.
You are a nomad. Nick. This is
well,
just
I've
an
probably had
excuse
too
for
many
us to
scones
eat.
in my life, so I try to avoid them. But I think I would go jam on top. Yes, I'd be... Yes,
you?
jam on the top for me, please.
Good,
Yeah.
well done, you. I'm
The
with
jam
you,
is like the butter, the cream. The cream is a special bit in the middle.
I'd go your way if I liked cream. Definitely. It's like icing on the top.
Every other way is wrong.
I don't think we're going to agree with this, are we? Thank you, both of you. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank
Got
you.
it on my nose now.
Yes,
Later.
let me have a look at you. You're
All right.
fine. It's gone. Yeah, you're all right.
Thank you.